Ciao everyone, back here on the 75. This is tutorial to do the rear wheel bearing. I've done yesterday already the one on the right hand side, and you need to be careful because when you buy a bearing, just make sure you get the rings as well. Unfortunately that one I had to cut it, and are sided, so right hand side is right handed and the left hand side is left handed. On top of that, you need to get some heavy duty equipment to get the hub carrier off, and also those tools. So this is for the latest model Alfa 75, SZ, Alfa 90, all the transaxle after 1986, and beforehand Alfetas, they had this model. So luckily enough I managed to source them online. There is a replica of the genuine OE tool, and that's what you need. So this is the a ram with a hub fuller, a couple of sockets with threaded bars, a heavy duty plate. Made that the first place was not thick enough, so that's bended, and I had to basically put two on top of it. The second one is that thickness, and yeah, and I had to get this massive bearing puller. So I'll show you the setup, how to do it. You need a 36mm to remove these nuts. First of all, of course, you need to take the split pins off, slack the nuts. Bear in mind it's really tight, so or you have a very good gun, or somehow you need to jump the basically you need to disconnect the drive shaft and jump something into the bolt against the axle, just to make, well, just to lock it, to allow you to unscrew it. The thread on the left hand side on the nuts is right handed anyway, so there is no problem. On the V6 engines, 2.5, 3 litre Alfetta GTVs and 75, those bolts on the drive shaft are 8mm Allen key. But be careful because are very rare, because the thread pitch on those bolts is by 1, so basically it's 10 by 1 high tensile bolt, not very easy to find. So if you just back at one, watch, if they don't go, just try to get a proper socket, knock it with a hammer right through, and make sure you're not round the head, because otherwise you'll be in serious trouble to get those bolts. Not very easy to find. There is some places online anyway you can get them, but it's kind of a pain anyway, because you're trying to do the job and you're going to get stuck. We've got the brakes on the other side as well. So brand new caliper, brand new disc, that's all done, and this is even adjusted, and I'll show you as well. I made another video just to do the rear brakes as well, so I'll show you how to do it. And that's for now, so I'll come back to you shortly, okay? Cheers. So, we managed to remove the nut. I had to cut the split pin, so I had to drill it out afterwards. Plus, unfortunately the nuts were slightly cross-threaded. Luckily enough, to do that job, I just purchased this as well, which is the thread of the drive shaft itself, which is 24 by 1, M24 by 1. You can get them on eBay. So just in case something happens like this, so you clean your thread and you put it back together. Alright, so now, so basically what we're going to do, we need to slack the bolt of the drive shaft. In that case, because I have to do, well, you have to disconnect both sides when you're doing a wheel bearing, because of course you have the drive shaft right in your way, and you have to keep basically this end on the shaft inside of the hub and has to function like a kind of a puller. So just in the meantime, I'm going to strip a moment the drive shaft, take it off. You may unfortunately have to leave in place because, or if you want the drive shaft off of the way, you need to take these nuts off of the shock absorber. Basically push the shock absorber up, sorry, and take the drive shaft out. So you do this if you don't want that, leave it just in your way. Otherwise you have to leave it lying between the spring and the shock absorber. Okay, to help yourself, you can do a thing. You can pull the handbrake anyway, or fully adjust the adjuster on the caliper. So basically what you're going to do, you're going to jam your brakes on, and yeah, to help you to slack those bolts. As I said, be very careful, don't round them, or in an eventually case, just if you can get a few spare just in case something happens to them. Again, our M10x1 high tensile, minimum 10.9 or 12.9. okay, cool. I'll see you shortly with the next step. I'm back again. So took the drive shaft off, so that's the way I said. So you can leave it hanging that way, or to remove it you need to take the strut off, but I'm not taking the drive shaft because I'm not doing anything on the drive shaft. Right, so that's the hub itself with the bearing. So that's the end of the shaft, which you have to leave in place, and I'll just set up the tool and I'll come back to you. So basically you need to keep this piece inside of the hub and using as a puller, and I'll show you the setup how it's going to work. All right, so that's the way we are setting up. So you need to put this big plate behind the hub carrier, seating against the Didion axle, and that's exactly the same copy of the original tool. That's the way it works, by the way. It will sit slightly squint. The top end will just go tipping towards the inside a bit. So that's the plate I was telling you, and that's the end of the shaft, which you have to keep inside of the hub. This is a hub puller with a small ram, so basically you avoid to use any hammer or anything else. I use in that case 2 threaded rod 16mm, and that's our 24mm. Suggestion, don't use the wheel bolts for that. The pitch is 12x15. Just buy some bolts, some nuts, and avoid to use the original one for the car, because otherwise you will damage them on a hub puller like that. So very recommended the one with as a flange nuts, otherwise you have to put washer on it. So okay, we'll put the phone on the stand, and yeah, we're gonna pull this bad boy out. All right, so we're gonna put some tension on, and eventually that should kind of start to come off. Moving. There's quite a bit of tension on these things. Yeah, start to move, start to come out. It's tight, so I would really recommend to use a kind of setup like this, because otherwise using a hammer is going to be a bloody nightmare. So that's it. We just have to recover a bit of tension. Pull it yourself, a bit more. That should do the job. Again, same story, it's just a bit of a time. And that's it. Quite amazingly and surprisingly, the inner part of the bearing is actually stuck in the hub, so very rare you get that, but I don't have to cut anything or do anything else on this. Okay, so that's stage one of dismantling the hub, and I'll come back to you shortly after the second setup. Okay, so I took everything out. Now the main issue is to remove that ring, and as I said earlier, on the left hand side it's left-handed, but I tried with that small things with the pole and it doesn't move. I'll have to cut it like I did on the other side. There's too much tension on it, and basically what happens, the way it's designed, the socket always try to spread the ring inside of the against the thread, so it will be no chance to have it off unless you're gonna use a lot of heat or anything like that. Bear in mind, this is a M78 by 1.5, left-handed on this side and right-handed on the other end. So watch what you're doing. Suggestion, get a wheel bearing kit with the ring, supply it, because you can get by the bearing on its own, but you don't have the ring, and that's what's gonna happen. So basically you need to cut it and you don't have the ring to put it back. There's no room to put a circlip unless you're gonna take the axle off, machined, whatever, and you put a conventional circlip on it, but way too much hassle to do that. So again, this is the socket that you need for the later model after 1986. Just a quick one. So all the Alfetas, the 75 Alfa 90s, if engine capacity is below 2 liter, there will be those drive shaft bolted will be M8 with a 6mm Allen key. Because that's 2.5, 2.5 and 3 liter V6s, they do have M10 by 1 with the head of the bolt 8mm Allen key. Okay, so that's the brake disc, the way it looks like without the drive shaft on. Okay, so and that will be a next video as well, how to dismantle that thing. So we'll make it a separate video so everybody can see the brake, how to do the brakes and how to do the wheel bearing. Okay, so I'm going to cut that, and I'm going to use a special dentist tool. We got technical now, that mini die grinder. Going to put a line right here, so we'll cut right through, and just with a screwdriver will pop off. And after that we need to pull the bearing out, which I will show you in a minute. Okay, thank you. So that's what I have to do, basically cut it. So it's a straight cut, no damage on the thread or anything. Okay, and now I'm going to set up the tool to pull the bearing out. So that's the way we are set. Basically there is a socket inside of the bearing itself, just on the inner part of it, a big bar in the back sitting against the axle so it won't spin, a threaded rod, and this is a cylinder liner piece basically of a rubber K-series. It does exactly the perfect job, same diameter. It's a 1.8 K-series engine. It's a cylinder liner. So now we need some torque on this threaded rod and pull it off. Hopefully it's going to come off easy. Okay, because it looks quite jammed. But anyway, we'll come back to you soon. Okay. Right, fingers crossed, we'll move. Yeah. So basically we have to break all the way out. And if you put some tension, eventually will crack. And if it cracks, means it does move. Get in there. That's good. So definitely you have to work out all the way off that way. Tight. Yeah. Right, that's a good thing. Yeah, good. Anyway, now we need to remove a bit of this. Okay, so we'll see a moment what actually going on here. I have to turn the socket the other way around, because otherwise it won't go through the hole. So that we hold, and yeah, that's the wheel bearing out. That's the wheel bearing out. I just have to prepare everything and put it all back together. Okay. Right, so you use the old bearing, you just pulled it off because it's exactly the same as a template. Will go right on without risk of touching anywhere. Put a bar, a plate in the back, the threaded rod right through, and that will go. Actually, you can use even the hammer, but just to show. Plus, you get to keep a bit more. It goes even like that. So basically, you just turn the spanner. And no problem. Give a bit of torque on it just to make sure it's all the way. Release the threaded thread, and that's the first stage of assemble. So that's it, in. That's in, completely in. Right. Now, important things to ring. This bloody ring, as I said, this is left-handed, so you turn it anti-clockwise to tight it. And now we use the special tool for it. Sorry, made a mistake there. You use on a normal thread right-handed. Okay, just a torque. A bit more with the pull, just ever so slightly. Make sure it's not going anywhere. That's it. That's that. And so torqued. And basically what you have to do, there's two lines here, to just get a chisel just ever so slightly a bank, just as a safety measure so you don't become slack. Although it will be that tight in a few years that you can't really remove it anymore, but that's the way it is. So I'll come back in a few seconds. We're going to put back the hub carrier back in, and that's it. That's the wheel bearing done. So that's prepared. Normally use a piece of emerald paper and just sand it that way, and it has to be with no rust whatsoever on it. And yeah, just to help yourself. And put some engine oil. There's people use grease, not copper grease, just normal bearing grease or oil. Normally use oil. So now is the tricky bits, because you can screw up all the job you've done. So make sure when you're going to put the plate in the back, just catch the inner side and hold it, because otherwise if you put on the external side it will pop the back end of the bearing out, and you screwed up the bearing, you need another bearing. Okay, I will just set up again and I'll come back to you. Right, so we got all set. Socket right bang in the middle of the inner part of the bearing. Another socket on the inside here, and that we're going to push the hub carrier in, and that's will be finished the job nice and smooth. Sorry for the mess here, because I have to set these bloody holders. So what we do, we're going to just start to winding this bolt in. That's that. Just going in. Bit of wobble, but socket is not 100% precise on the top. That's what it is. And that's it. Just job done. Okay. Just like that. That's your wheel bearing on the rear axle on the Alfa 75 done. I hope that will be helpful, because I noticed there is no any other video tutorial for this. Yeah, we're going to put it back. Just I'm going to have to prepare the half a shaft on the front, because it's got the thread damage, so I need to pass the die on the top. Really recommend to get a tap and die set 24x1, because it could be a problem like this. Bear in mind, this is 32 years old car. I'm thinking I'm the first one's been in there after she left the factory in Milan, probably, and pretty much that's it. So I'll sort all it out, I'll put it back together, and I will come back with another video with the brakes. Okay, have a nice day everyone.